loves, it's Lacey and welcome back to our space. So today in our space I have a DIY for you guys, and the thing we are going to be using to make it is clothespins. These are clothespins from the Dollar Tree and there are 36 in the pack. We are going to be using most of this pack to make this item. Now I was asked by lots of people to make the clothespin chair that has been shown all over Instagram and Facebook, but you know I'm extra, so I decided to change it up a bit and make something a little bit different. It's the same concept, so if you only want to make the chair, you can still just make the chair by following simple directions and making it downsized for what I'm making. And what I'm making is this. It is a bench with a heart shape back to it with a little heart in the bottom of it, and it takes up all but 3 and 1 extra piece of the clothespins. Now I'm going to tell you right now to buy more than 1 pack of clothespins if you want to make this, because these clothespins are different colors. Some of them are damaged and missing pieces. So in order to make sure you have enough, purchase 2 packs of clothespins. So let's get on with the tutorial so you can see how I made this cute bench with a heart in the middle for Valentine's Day. Now, once you have these 8 done, we are going to focus on making the crossbars to our bench. You have 4 of those. These 8 make up the arms and the legs of the bench and 2 of the sections in the heart. This one and this one. So you need 8 of those all together. And then now we're going to make this crossbar, and there's 4. There's 2 on the back and 2 underneath. Next, we're going to make the back support to our bench here. For that, you're going to need one of the 2 that you put together, and then 2 of the singles. As you can see, 1 here and 1 there. And you're going to do that for both sides. initial one I made, and here's the one I just made for you guys. And neither of the backs are attached. I'm actually going to paint this one white, and I may stain this one. I have to see what my friend would like done with it. So we're going to set this one aside, and we're going to go ahead and paint this one with Waverly chalk paint in white. Here is my final project, and I love how it turned out. Everything you see here can be purchased from the Dollar Tree on this project. I use one pack basically of the clothespins to make this, but I do suggest that you buy two like I showed you in the beginning, just in case some of them are damaged, discolored, or you just can't use them because they don't fit together well. Now, the hardest part of this project, I have to tell you, is actually laying it all out and making sure that it fits together to make the bench. And it just takes a little bit of patience because it is Dollar Tree clothespins. My first one, it took me an hour to think about how I wanted it to go and put it together. And I had to finagle the heart shape in the back to make sure it fit into the bench. I had to remove a couple of the clothespins that I initially used because they did not fit in there as well. They had rough edges and some of them were kind of broken. However, it only takes one pack of clothespins and you will have, I do believe, 3 clothespins and 1 extra piece left over, or maybe 2 and 1 extra piece if you use 1 pack. So that in itself is a $1 project. If you just want to make the bench and use it, it's only a $1 project. Now, to paint it, I used a foam brush, as I showed you guys, and some detail brushes for my art supplies to get into the crevices, and I only put 1 coat of chalk paint. I did glue this bench down to the base. However, before that, I showed that I put some decorative stones underneath from the middle towards the front because the back will make it heavy and it will tip over on you if someone bumps it. It will sit by itself with no problems, but if someone runs into it or picks it up and tries to set it back down, it might tip over. So I did glue it to my base. It won't tip over. It's perfectly fine. The cherry blossom stems is actually 2 stems put together. I took a lot of the blossoms off of 1 stem and glued it on the branches where it looked like it would have a flower on it to make it fuller, and then I scattered some across the ground to cover up where I did glue it to the base and just for a little extra decoration. In order to glue it to the base, I just used some Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks and held on to it after I bent the end so it would stand up and go over the back of the tree. I also leaned it up against the side of the bench, and on the other side I put a moss covered rock from Dollar Tree. I have one on each side. And then I threw down some succulents that I always have in my stash, but Dollar Tree is putting out as succulents right now. All in all, the river rocks that are on it that I made into the little people, which was my concept from the very beginning of this, are too small. I know this, you don't have to tell me, but these are the only ones that Dollar Tree had. I thought they were a lot bigger when I looked at them in the bag. I got a bag that had the biggest stones that I could find, and I thought it would work out, but I need bigger river rock stones. I think it's really, really cute, and that's what I wanted to do with this, so I will be replacing those with bigger ones at a later date. Across the front, I was going to write "Love is in bloom" or something like "I love us" with my Cricut, but I thought it would be too much, and I actually like the wood grain on this sign, so I'm going to leave it like this. So that is it for this project. If you have any other questions, please leave them down in the comment section down below. Today in our space, we are going to be making a heart-shaped wreath. And to do this, we're going to use mostly Dollar Tree items, starting with the heart-shaped wreath form ring from Dollar Tree. We're also going to be utilizing my favorite ribbon that they carry, which is the burlap with lace on top of it ribbon. You'll need 2 of these. We are also going to be utilizing some fairy lights. I am probably going to go dig some out that have a purple tone to them. I don't have those here with me, and I just thought of it. I do have the white clear ones, so you could use that, or you could leave the lights off altogether, and you'll see that once we get into the DIY. And we are also going to be utilizing this. This is what is called a Valentine ornament, and I got it from Hobby Lobby. It is regularly $4.99, but right now they have 40% off of all of their Valentine's things, and so I purchased it for $2.99. Now, if you want to make this project, just so you know, at my 2 Hobby Lobby stores, this item is on a shelf, not hanging up. Some stores might have it hanging up, but mine is on a shelf. I saw it and I thought it would be perfect for this project. So let's jump right into it. Alright, next I decided to change my mind on how I'm putting this together a little and add in one of these chopping mats from Dollar Tree. They come 2 in a pack, and so I already removed one. They are frosted on one side, and on the other side it has a smooth finish, but it is frosted for you to see through. I am going to take it and turn it this way, and then take my painted hearts and lay it out and trace around it, and then glue that piece to the back of this. If you haven't guessed by now, I'm going to be placing this piece on top of the lighted piece so the light reflects through all the little parts. Now next we're going to take this burlap ribbon and we are going to place it around the outer edge here of this heart. We're going to start here in the middle, and we're going to scrunch it up and glue it down all the way around in kind of a ruffle. I was going to use the needle and thread and gather it, but I tried it and it doesn't really help at all. It just makes it a little more difficult, to tell the truth. You can do it either way. So I'm going to skip the needle and thread that I was going to use, and I'm going to start gluing it down around the outer edge. And here is it with the first row of ribbon around it. I like how it turned out. It's nice and ruffly. And now we are going to go ahead and add a second row of ribbon. Now on the first spool of ribbon, I had already used some of it, so I'm not sure how much is around this, but it is one full piece. And now on the second row, we are going to go around the chopping mat with it. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to make it into a ruffle, so it's 2 layers of ruffle ribbon going around this, and then we are going to place our piece on and glue it down. Now because this portion up here doesn't have chopping mat and we actually want the ribbon to follow this, we are not going to follow this edge here, we're going to follow the chopping mat. So when we glue this down, it will have like a little bit of space here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet. I may put some kind of bow there, or depending on how I do the ribbon, it may just be ribbon there. And then our project will be done. So I am going to do the same thing that I did. I'm going to ruffle the ribbon and go all the way around the chopping mat. And here is my final project. And sorry about the lighting, it's making it look more gray than it actually is. This is more of a tan color burlap ribbon, but from what I'm looking at, it looks a little bit gray. Sorry about that, it's getting dark here in Michigan. So I am very happy with how this turned out. This is the exact vision that I had in my head. I'm really happy I decided to paint the overlay in white instead of like a bright red or a pink or something like that. I think this piece is so neutral, it can go with pretty much anyone's household and any kind of decorating style that you have. It's also so nondescript because it doesn't say Valentine's Day or anything on it that you could leave it out at any time of the year. I did put lights in mine, so I am going to show you that in just a second, how it lights up. But you don't have to put lights in yours, and I think it will be just as pretty. I just thought, because of the cutouts and purple being my favorite color, maybe I should illuminate it a little bit purple. I'm not sure that I'm even going to turn it on most of the time, but I do have the option. So let me show you what it looks like lit up. So here it is lit up, and it gives a little bit of a warm glow with a hint of kind of a lavenderish purple. I did not place a light in the big heart at the top in the middle, but it just so happens one kind of formed right there to fill that heart in, and I think that is quite lovely. I am in love with this project, and I think that I want to make something else that kind of illuminates along with the chopping mat. I think you need that to help diffuse the light so it's not so harsh coming through underneath this. But like I said, for the most part, I'm not going to have it lit up, but this would be pretty with all of the lights off. So let me show you that too. And first of all, I have from Dollar Tree is this vertical slatted heart, also some extra large craft sticks. I also have these spring roses in pink that they have, and some Waverly antique wax from Walmart. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to be covering up all of the openings on the back side of this heart. I'm going to take the extra large craft sticks and cut them off so that they meet up evenly with each other, and I'm going to glue them down onto the back to cover up the openings, just on the back side, because I'm going to be gluing the little roses to all of the slats. So all you have to do is measure them out here, and then use some Gorilla Hot Glue for my Ryobi glue gun, and I'm just going to make sure that they're even in the middle of the slats. You don't need to cover up the entire back, just the slats here. That's why we're using the craft sticks. Once we get those nicely placed down, then we're going to flip our heart over, and I'm using a little bit of paper towel to protect my surface, and I'm going to totally cover my heart with the Waverly antique wax. And I'm going to be brushing this on with a little paintbrush, but you can use a foam brush if you like, but you're going to cover the whole thing. And I try to stay with the grain of the project because the grains run differently on these slats. Once you get it all on, we're going to wipe it all off with a baby wipe. At least that's what I use. You can use just a damp cloth, so then you can see the grain of the wood. The first one I had wiped off prior, so I'm just adding a little bit extra on and going to let it sit for a second, and then wipe it off after it's sat for a second so it can be as dark as the other slats. But I love how the wood grain shows through this, and this is how I wanted this project to look. So then once we get done with that, we're going to be taking our spring roses, and I have about 4 bunches of these, but I only use 2 bunches and then maybe 4 more flowers. All of these will probably be a little different because the flowers are different sizes. So I cut off one of the flowers, and I cut off a section of leaves. You'll see if you have these, they come in little sections of 3. And I also cut the bottom of the stem of the flower down so it sat a little flatter. And now I'm adding hot glue underneath the flower and on the back of the leaves. And I'm going to glue all of them into the slats. I don't know why I put that one there, but it worked out for me. I didn't have to move it. But start at the top and then work your way down. Now, I was cutting these off individually, but I found out that this is just a much easier thing to do it assembly line style. So I cut off all the groups of leaves, and then I cut off the flowers, and I cut the stems down on the flowers and then glued them to the leaves, and then put glue on the back of the leaves and then stuck them into the slats. So they go all the way down like this. It's simple. It just took longer to do them individually. So I got everything off the stems, and I'm doing it assembly line like this. So put the flower onto the leaves, put some glue on the back of the leaf, and then put it in the slot. I have some extra little flowers or little leaves over the side where they broke off and it wasn't three on a stem. And so you can tuck those in on where you think you might need them. I don't show you guys doing that, but I want them to be nice and even down in them all to look about the same. So some glue in the leaves, glue the flower to the leaf, and then glue it inside the slat. That's as easy as this is. And I think it makes it look really, really nice when you do it this way, especially to keep them even. Then I dry fitted all these pieces that you see are sticking out. On these, they have these harder pieces, and that one won't come out, but it's not glued in there, that are flat and it looks like vines growing out. So I took those and I stuck those in and just dry fitted them where I thought I wanted them to be, and now I'm gluing them down. The little roses that are on the end of some of these don't come on the ends. I just had some of the roses that were damaged, and so I cut the bottom part off and made smaller ones and stuck them on the end afterwards. It's simple. You can do it really easily because you'll have roses left over if you use 3 stems like I did of this. I only used about 4 flowers off of the other pick, and so I had a lot of little roses left over. And this is how it turned out. I think it's really, really pretty, quite unique, and it's still neutral enough with the pink flowers to be a Valentine's DIY project. We're going to be using one of the wood rounds that Dollar Tree carries. We also are going to be using the antique wax, and then I have all of these paper flowers. The little white box actually came from Dollar Tree, and then the rest of them here, I have 2 packs of this particular one, and then 2 different packs all came from Hobby Lobby, and they were on sale. I think they were only 30% off. So again, I am going to be tackling this wood round, and I'm actually going to put the wax on the front and on the back of this. I want the whole thing covered because it's a really pretty project, and if you wanted to set it on a stand instead of hang it on the wall, I think it'd be good to have the back covered. So once it was all on, I wiped it off with a baby wipe and let it dry, did the other side. Now I'm going to be taking these paper flowers. These were about $5.99 a pack, but like I said, they were all on sale. The white ones, they came from Dollar Tree, and that was the only pack that I ended up finding. So what I'm going to do is dry fit this entire project. I am going to be creating a heart. If you saw the thumbnail, it is going to be a open heart. Now I did get inspiration from Pinterest from this. I've seen a lot of people use paper flowers for different things, for Valentine's Day and other for spring projects and stuff, and they've done flowers out of the flowers, they've done hearts and stuff. So this I did have inspiration from, and I absolutely love this project. I like the colors that I picked for it for Valentine's Day. I just really didn't want to do a lot of red things, so we are kind of going with a semi-pink theme here. So all I'm doing is picking the flowers in the sizes that I think are going to go really well. Those really big ones over to the side I'm not going to end up using, just because the size of my wood round is quite small. You know, it's not that big from Dollar Tree. If you have a bigger one, you could use the bigger roses all together, or the bigger flowers, because they're not all roses. And I really love that some of these packs have like the more muted pinks, some have darker pinks. There is a buffalo check paper flowers in there, as you can see, and it looks really, really pretty. Also, you guys know how extra I am. I want this to be really whimsical, and I saw someone do one that was whimsical, and I'm sorry, I don't know who their name is, but where your heart does not connect at the bottom, and so that's what I decided to do with this one, is to make one where the heart doesn't connect at the bottom as well. I played with this for quite a while, and even on my final project here, when I get done with it, you'll see at the end it changed just a little bit. But you can make your own paper flowers. If you own a Cricut, you can cut out paper flowers with a Cricut. I do own a Cricut, and I already had these, so I went ahead and used these so I could show you guys my idea. But I would love to do something like this on a bigger scale, and my Cricut would be perfect to cut out different paper flowers. They already have a lot of different patterns for you there. So as you can see, this is how this one turned out, I still change it up just a tiny bit. But when I dry fit things like this, I take a picture. As you can see, I have my phone with my camera on my phone, so then I know where each piece goes back together. I do this with a lot of projects. Sometimes you lay it out and then you have to move it to glue it all down, or to move the project and you're not done with it. This is an easy way to make sure you get it all back where you absolutely want it. Have a picture so you have a reference to go back to. So that's what I'm doing. I have my phone a little bit off screen and I am just taking hints from it. You don't have to stay to it true, because I didn't stay absolutely true to the picture, but it gives me an idea of what I already liked and how I wanted these pieces to go. But this project is super simple, as you can tell. All you're doing is gluing down these paper flowers to this wood round, and really that's all it is. I mean, you could do something extra. You could add words inside the heart. You could use less flowers and just do a one edge of flowers around, you know, like not stack them up like I'm doing. But I love it, and I think it turned out really, really pretty in the end. So here's what it looks like once I'm done gluing everything down. And I decided that I'm going to go ahead and put a hanger on it. I had this little piece of pink ribbon left from another project, and so I didn't even cut it or anything. It was just what was left. I never throw anything away. You guys know I say that. Don't throw anything away, because you never know when you can use it later. So I'm just going to put it in the holes and go ahead and tie it off on the back. Now, once I got it on there and I looked at it, and a couple family members looked at it with me, we all decided that it would be really cute if I would have maybe braided twine around the ribbon or added more than one ribbon, but that was the only ribbon that I had that kind of matched that. And once I get it on there, I didn't want to like undo it and then braid the twine and stuff on, but that would be a really cute idea for it to braid it around, because the pink is a little bit pink for the muted colors in the flowers, but I like it and I'm keeping it for myself, so it's fine with me. So this is what it looks like hanging on my door, and I just think it's so adorable. So for the next one, we're going to use a solid wood heart. I also have this little wreath that came from Target's Dollar Spot. I also have this ribbon that came from Michael's, and then I do have two other paints and the Waverly chalk paint, and also those decals, but those decals were a little bit too big. They came from Hobby Lobby. I am going to be using one, I'll show you in a second, from Dollar Tree instead. So it's the same process. All three of these DIYs are getting the Waverly antique wax, because I just loved it. I like this neutral tone, and I absolutely love the wood grain in this particular heart. It came out really, really nice. Sometimes the Dollar Tree ones are really, really nice, and I love the pattern of this wood. So I'm only doing the one side of this wood because I am going to hang it. And then I'm going to take this reform, and you guys, if you've been around my channel before, you've seen me do this before. This wreath form is a circle, but I'm bending it because it has a very strong wire in it into the shape of a heart. And then it has all of this boxwood around it, and I'm just going to spin some of it around the wreath form and make it go around, because some of it has wires in it. And then the pieces that don't have wires in, I'm going to show you here in a second, I'm just going to go ahead and cut them off that stick out, and then re-glue them into the reform, into the bare spots where I cut them off from. So I know it doesn't look perfectly like a heart, but it is in a heart shape. And when I get all these little extra pieces off that won't lay down, you can see more the heart shape of it. And I'm going to have this be on the front of my heart. So I am going to glue in all of the little pieces that I took off. I'm going to stick them in different sections, but before that, I pulled out these smaller heart decal. Like, they're little wood pieces, and they're the blonde wood, and I was going to paint it the white, but the more I looked at it with this, I liked it in its natural state. So I'm just going to take one of the twine hangers that came with the pack and tie it onto the top of my heart wreath form now. And then after I get it tied on there, I'll cut off the little excess twine. I double knotted it and put a little drop of hot glue so it will stay where it is going. I'm using my smaller Ryobi hot glue gun just because it dispenses a little less glue, but I'm still using Gorilla glue sticks. I didn't want too much glue coming out trying to place in all of these extra little pieces that I cut out to cover up the brown wire that's on this wreath form that, you know, is going to show when you cut out pieces of it. So I'm just sticking them in where it's necessary or where I just feel like it needs to be a little fuller. And I'm going to do that all the way around the green wreath. And then once we get all of that done, I'm going to make a bow to go on it. So anywhere you see that there's just like an empty spot and you want it to look more full, you would stick all of these extra little green pieces in. So now before I actually make my bow, I'm going to take some of the wired twine from Dollar Tree that they have. You can use any kind of wire on the back, but since this had twine on it and it was nice and dark, I decided to use that. I'm going to wrap it around just the green wreath form part and twist it up really well because I want this to be glued down to my heart. However, if I glue the wreath form down by itself, it's going to smush the back of it, and then the bottom of the heart on the wreath form is going to kind of stand out from the heart. If you know what I mean, it's not going to lay evenly. So I'm going to twist this around into a circle on the back and then use a whole bunch of hot glue, Gorilla hot glue, and then stick that to my wreath form. And it actually holds it on there really well, and it stops me from having to squish the top of the green wreath. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just holding it until it completely dries because I use quite a bit of it, and when you pick it up, it's going to stay on your wreath and you don't have to worry that it's all squished. You can still see that it's nice and fluffy all the way around. And then any place that I think that it's not fluffy, I just fluffed it up. Now we're going to make a bow. So I'm going to show you here how I started to make the bow. I made it way too big, so I'm going to have two bows, but that's okay. I used it for another project later on. I did this a 2-loop on each side bow, and I'm going to be making tails on it. The bow that I actually put on this, which you'll see in just a second, doesn't have any tails on it, and I decided to do a 3-loop bow. You guys know already, if you've been around. If you haven't, I'm extra. I always want my projects to be just a little bit more than what they need to be. So I'm using a small zip tie. Dollar Tree sells these to secure my bow in the middle. And it's just like a regular bow, like almost like you tied your shoes. And then after I get it together, I realize it's way too big and I don't want to take it apart. I know I can use it later. So I do a 3-loop bow with no tails. And I do the same thing. I use a Dollar Tree zip tie and I secure it together, and then I'm going to cut off the excess of the zip tie and fluff my bow. I want my bow to, you know, be rather large on this on the front, but I didn't want it to cover up the heart shape at all. And the other one was too long. The tails came down and covered up the little heart ornament decal thing that's in the middle too much. So I decided to do this instead. So I'm just going to take and glue it down into the top of my wreath form. But before I did that, I took and I cut off some of the trim off of an excess piece of that ribbon, and I'm going to cover up the middle where the zip tie is. I wasn't going to do that at first because I had a little wooden heart and I was going to put that there, but I like this instead. The little wooden heart was just a little bit too big, and I didn't think I needed another heart for it. So I know it's hard to see, but I just took off the trim, the buffalo check trim, and then put it over in the middle. And this is what this looks like. And I think it's really elegant and simple and easy to do. today in our space, I have some Valentine's DIYs for you guys. So let's just jump into it. Right here, as you can see, I have this chalkboard heart that came from Target's Bullseye Playground. It has a little key on it, and it was only $3, which I thought was a really good price for how nice and big it is. The problem is this key lays fine down on the heart, but when you go to hang it up by the twine, it does not lay flat at all. I don't really understand this concept, so we're going to take it off of here. I'm just going to cut the twine and save it to put back on the back of the heart to use as a hanger. I'm just going to attach it lower, but I'm going to take the key off. And don't worry, we're going to use the key for this DIY. We just aren't going to leave it attached to the twine at the top. I get the concept, but I don't understand why they did it that way. So here, we're just going to glue it back on a little bit lower, the twine part, so we can use that to go ahead and hang this heart up if you want to. You don't have to use twine, you can add something different, but I didn't want to waste anything. Now I have these really tiny roses from Dollar Tree. They're kind of an off-white with a yellow tint to them. I really like these because they were small and they wouldn't take up a lot of room on this heart, and they were like nicely tightly put together. I'm going to cut the ends off of them where they were attached to make them a lot flatter. But I'm not going to cut them so low that the roses come apart. And then I'm going to glue them all the way around the border. After I got these on, I can tell you right now, I did not like the color. I thought they were more off-white, but they give off like a yellow tone. It's really pretty, and I was trying to go for like more of a neutral look. However, I would prefer to have red, and they did not have red at any of the stores that were really close to me. And so I am probably going to remove all of these. I'm going to save them and I'm going to use them in another project, but I don't really care for the yellow tint. So now here we have the key, and I'm going to take a Jenga block and put it on its side and put the key on it and put it on the bottom. We're going to make a little ledge, but so that the Jenga block does not show, I'm going to take some Waverly chalk paint that I got from Walmart in my stash in the color ink, which is basically their black, and as you can see, I'm coloring that block in, so it basically will be invisible and all you will see is the key when we glue it down. So chalk paint dries really fast. We're just going to put some glue on the side, on the smallest side, and then glue the key down, and then we're going to turn it over once that's dry and glue it to our chalkboard at the bottom. And I'm putting it as low as I can get it to still be able to see the key and to make a little ledge. And that ledge is so we can put a piece of chalk on there. But before we do, we're going to take a piece of chalk, and I'm writing, "You have the key to my heart." And I'm actually going to draw a heart instead of write the word heart on here. I just think it is really cute. You can write whatever you want for it. You can also use a chalk pen. I do have a couple of them, but they are a little fat for this ledge. I need to get a skinnier one. And this is what my final project looks like. As you can see, I covered up the chalk with a little bit of ribbon because it kind of looked like a cigarette sitting up there, so I didn't want to show that. And once I take off the other roses, it will look. I'm taking this leftover picture frame that I had from some framed art at Dollar Tree. There's no glass in it and the art is already gone. So I'm going to be covering the back of it with this black and white striped wrapping paper. If you guys are a oldie but goodie on my channel, you know I use wrapping paper for all kinds of projects. I absolutely love this. I'm going to trace out the back and then cut it out and just glue it down with some hot glue. Now if you want to get the same look and not have to go buy wrapping paper, you could take some white like computer paper, tape it off, paint over it in black. You probably have to do it like at least 2 sheets together, and then turn around and remove the tape, and you can get black and white striped paper that way too. But this is wrapping paper. It was cheap. It came from like Hobby Lobby, I do believe. And then once we get this all covered, I just use some hot glue for it because you're not going to really notice it and it'll hold it down. We're just going to put it back into the frame. And then, like I showed you a second ago, I have this sheet music that I printed out on my computer, just from my computer, just on my regular printer. It's actually 2 sheets that I'll be showing you here in a second. And I'm going to tear around around it to make it fit into this frame. Now I'm making sure that I don't tear off the name. This is the song My Funny Valentine to go along with Valentine's Day. As you can see, I cut off the excess that was in the back because it wasn't long enough, and you're not going to see that it doesn't actually match up when we get done with it, so that is not an issue. I just wanted it longer for the frame. Once I get it torn like I like it and it fits within the frame, I'm going to then take some black paint, which is the Waverly chalk paint here, and I'm going to simply go around the edge to make it look worn. And I actually wanted it to look pretty old, so I was using a wet wipe to clean up my area because I got a little paint on it, and I'm going to just take the paint that's on there and rub it around the edges, as you can see, to make it look kind of old. Now I'm taking some Mod Podge from the Dollar Tree, and I just dumped some right on it, and there's no wrong or right way to do this. I'm just going to make sure that I adhere this down all the way around. I know I'm going pretty fast here. I sped the footage up, but I'm going to slow it down here so you can see that I just am dragging across the edges. I didn't put any under it, but I'm rubbing my brush there underneath it and then dragging across the edges so they stick down. This piece isn't going to get moved around very much or anything, so just as long as it sticks down, it works for me. Now I'm taking one of these beautiful roses that I got from Michael's that was 80% off. It is actually a Christmas item, and I'm going to measure where I would like it to go on this frame. My Mod Podge is still a little wet, that's why that's shiny. I actually used the matte one, and once I measure it, I'm going to just cut it off here with some wire cutters. I'm going to keep that stem, you know, I keep everything just in case I can use it for something else. And I'm going to see where I would like it to sit in the middle of my sheet music, making sure I don't cover up the name of what the music is. Then I'm just going to glue it down with my hot glue gun. I removed one of the leaves because it was sticking out too much. And so I'm going to take that apart a little and put it back on, because you know me, I'm extra. I need it to look nice and full in order for me to like it. And then we have one more step and this is done. I am taking some ribbon from Dollar Tree. All three of these are from Dollar Tree. This one says Happy Valentine's on it, and as you can see, I'm being really picky here, just folding it over to make a simple tied bow. On this one, I want it to be able to read Happy Valentine's, so I'm just making sure that it's going to fit where I want it on the stem, and you can still read Happy Valentine's. That's why it's taking me so long to just push it together. If it was a normal bow, I would be done with it already. Once I get that in the spot that I like, I'm going to take the one that has all of these little hearts on it. It's pink, red, and white hearts, and I'm going to do the same thing, and you're going to see here that I'm going to do that a whole lot faster because I don't have to worry about where they're going to fall on the ribbon, and I'm just going to cut that edge right off to leave some nice long tails on it. And then I'm going to take this white lacy ribbon and I'm going to wrap it around to tie the middle. Instead of using any floral wire or anything like that, it's just simple because I am going to be using this ribbon for just tails, and I thought, oh, it would be good to make the tie in the middle. Once I get that done, I'm going to figure out where I'm going to place it after I fluff it up a little bit, and then I'm going to glue it down with some hot glue on the stem. And then this project is basically done once I cut all of the tails so they don't hang past the bottom of the picture frame. I love how this turned out. I think it is so, so pretty. The rose head is kind of heavy, but it's not too heavy for this frame. And you can hang it on a wall or you can set it down somewhere next to something. And it just adds so much to your decor. I think it's a beautiful and one of my favorite Valentine's projects I've ever done. Not that I've done a ton of Valentine's projects in the past, but this one is so special. I absolutely love it. Okay, for this next project and our last project, I'm going to be using some of the grapevine hearts that come in a bag of 5, about 3 bags of those. So I'd buy at least 2 if you want to try this project. I have the bamboo cup that's the pen holder from Crafter Square and 2 of the roses. This one was already cut off from another project. I'm going to reuse it. So you're going to need 3 of these hearts, and I can tell you right now, I opened 2 of the packs to get the shortest hearts that were available and the ones that didn't have the most stuff on them. You'll see if you buy those that some of them are really thick and some of them are thinner. You need kind of the shorter ones. It'll work if you use the taller ones. They'll just be taller than the cup, but I'm using the shortest ones so they're not that much taller than the cup. So I cut off the stem to the roses and I took the leaves off. I'm going to remove the long extra stems from the leaves. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using these leaves to cover the outside of the cup. The cup reminded me of a tree for wood, and so that's basically what I'm using it for. I want this foliage to be looking like it kind of is growing off of it, if it can. I don't know. I just really wanted to cover it with some foliage. So that's what we're going to be doing here. And we're going to do it all the way around the cup. Now, the only tip that I give you for this is I made sure that if I had a stem on the extra leaves that I'm putting on, that they kind of tuck underneath one of the other leaves, so it didn't look like it wasn't growing together. I'll show you here. I just kind of put some glue on it and kind of tuck it in so it looks like it's growing off of that leaf. And that's all I did. There's no rhyme or reason to this. You can put them on any kind of way that you like, but I did cover the entire cup. Alright, now that we have all the leaves on, we're going to take our hearts, and they all kind of sort of bend one direction. So as you can see, it kind of bends towards the cup, and I'm going to glue the top middle section to the top of the cup and the leaves. I made sure that I didn't have leaves all the way around the edge of the top of the cup. That way you can actually glue to the wood portion as well. And so this is going to take 3 of them. They're not going to touch each other. I made sure I left a little gap next to each one so they fit all the way around, and it's just going to take a second to hold it to dry, especially if you're using a high heat glue gun like I am. My Ryobi glue gun, it is high heat, but it holds my Gorilla Glue sticks, and I'm using Gorilla Glue throughout all of these projects. So then I'm going to take one of the rose that I had left over, the one that was already cut. It was kind of squished on one side, and so I'm going to take out the center section of that rose, as you can see right there. It's the entire satin section of that rose, and then I'm going to peel apart the glued edges on the bottom portion because I want this rose to be bigger and making sure that it covers the entire opening of the cup. So now here I'm just checking to make sure that it is going to be big enough and that the other rose fits in there well. I take it back out and remove the stem, and then I put it back in, and it makes this rose set up a whole lot higher, and it's big enough to cover the top of the cup. So now that I have that done, I have leftover in my stash, as you can see, this is what it looks like right here. I have leftover in my stash some little white flowers that kind of remind me of baby's breath. I'm not sure what they were on. They might have been on roses. I save everything that I don't use, as you guys know. And I'm going to add some into the hearts around the vines and by the leaves, just for a little bit of extraness, because you guys know I'm extra. I thought it needed something, and really, to tell the truth, I wanted to put ribbon on it. I wanted to put a couple little butterflies on it, but then I thought I was way over the top. So I want the rose to actually be the star of this piece. So I'm only going to add in a few pieces of baby's breath here. And for a final touch, I'm taking this candle stick here from Dollar Tree. It has a little base that goes to it. As you can see, I'll show you here. We're not going to be using this base, but if you needed it for something, these are really nice. It is a bright white light up candle. I already put the batteries in it, and of course it's from Dollar Tree, so it's going to give me a little bit of trouble here to light up, but it fits perfectly down in the center of this rose. I absolutely love that. And so this is a candle holder, and I thought it was really, really cute. I contemplated actually painting the candlestick like the red or maybe, you know, a green or something, but I left it white. I didn't decide to do anything else, and I still kind of wanted to put a butterfly on the bottom. Hi loves, it's Lacey and welcome to our space. So today we are going to be making some more Valentine's DIYs. I have here in front of me all the supplies you're going to need. I have the beaded heart reform from a Dollar Tree. I also have the heart reform, but we won't be using it, but I will be showing it to you. I do also have this gorgeous wood grain red heart from Dollar Tree, some baker's twine that we won't be using. I have the wood letters from Crafter Square. I have 3 packs of these we will be using, and these are some little wooden hearts. We're going to be using one, but not exactly from that pack, but I'm showing you Dollar Tree has them. This beautiful ribbon from Dollar Tree, this beautiful ribbon that I've used a lot of already from Dollar Tree, and then I have 3 ribbons from Hobby Lobby. A solid red that has about 30 feet on it, a kind of sheer red, and a sheer white. These are all the same, and they were in my stash. So first of all, we're going to take some Gorilla wood glue, and you can use the Dollar Tree wood glue if you had them. And I pulled out all the I's and the U's for the 3 packs of letters that I have, the little wooden letters in Crafter Square. And I'm going to stack them up and glue them together. I showed you just a second ago a I that I had pulled out from my stash, and I loved how thick it was, and I was trying to figure out how we could do that from Dollar Tree. Now, you don't need all 3 of these. If you're fine with just using 1 pack and using an I and a U from 1 pack and not making them look more 3D, you don't have to do this. But I wanted them to look 3D like the other one that I had in my stash. And so I am gluing 3 of them together so they stick up. And I just really like the look of it. I'm using a small paintbrush from Dollar Tree to spread the glue out so I get it on all the edges. And then I stack these up and I make sure I pick them up and press them together. And then if there's any glue seeping out, I just use my little paintbrush and I glue it over on the sides. And then I set it aside to dry. I'm going to do the same thing for the U's. Then I'm showing you here that my idea was to cut loose the outer ring on this heart reform and just have the inner ring. So I'm using some wire cutters that I just got from Home Depot. I do have some that I like better, but they are in my tools, and if I will link those down below if you want to pick up some really nice wire cutters. But I have this, and my plan was to cut off 6-inch ribbons, like I'm going to show you here. I'm using my ruler just to measure out 6 inches, and I'm going to do a couple of these just to show you. I want to get them as close together as possible, and then I'm just going to use the ribbons I already cut to cut the rest of them. And here they are. And then I'm going to cut dovetails on the end of these ribbons. So for all of the big ribbons, I cut 14 to 15 pieces. And all of the small ones, I cut 12. Or this one, I cut 12. And this one, the other one with the big hearts on it, I only cut, I think, 9, because that's all the ribbon I had left. And on those, I just cut them on the diagonal on their ends. So I have a lot of ribbon here, and I've decided instead of using that wire reform, I'm going to use the back of this, and I'm going to take and twist these ribbons in the middle. I'm going to grab a white one here. I was showing you already had 2 of them down. Twist it around like 3 times in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the middle, and then fold it in half. So then the dovetails stick out, and then I'm going to put a dot of hot glue down and glue that to the back of this. Now I'm going to glue it to the back near the edge. I had already glued one down and I took it off so I could show you better. Near to the edge, but not all the way to the edge. I need a little lip underneath. So it is not all the way to the edge. And this is what it kind of looks like when you do it. So as you can see, it has all the ribbons coming up. People do these ribbon wreaths all the time and they turn out beautifully. I had never done one, so this is my first attempt. Now, most of the time what they do is they glue it to the wire wreath form. But I started looking at what I wanted to do and I decided to do it this way instead. Now, if you really want to see one that is done with the wire wreath form, I do believe my friend Julie from Julie's Wreath Boutique, she does one that's on a wire wreath form. And I will link her channel down below and you can go over and check her out. She just gorgeous wreaths all the time. And it's a bonus that she's from Michigan and I'm from Michigan and I just love her channel. So anyway, this is what this looks like when I get halfway around. It's really cool, really pretty looking, and this is what it looks like when I'm done. It's easy. It's super easy to put it on the back like this, and the back looks like this. As long as you take your time and don't put down too much glue, it will look nice and neat on the back. Then what I'm going to take is the little thin ribbons, and I'm going to fold them in half so that both sides face the front like this into a V. And then I'm going to tuck them in that little lip, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue in between where they're folded so they stay together, and then tuck them in where that little lip is. Now this one I want it directly in the middle, and I kind of missed for the middle, so I do move it a little bit later. You'll see that in the video that it's moved. But then I'm going to take the other one and fold it in half and put the V's up, and as you can see, the diagonals on these are two opposite different ways, and I did that on purpose just for aesthetics for me, but it doesn't really make a difference. You can do it either way you want. You can put different color ribbons in here. You don't have to make it like I did. I know both of the ribbons that I'm using now came from Dollar Tree, but one was already in my stash, and I don't even know if they carried it this year if you want to make this, but any thinner ribbon would be really cute. And so I'm doing this, and I'm going to go all the way around this heart wreath form, or this heart basically. And how I decided to do it, as you can see, is I did the top and then I did the bottom, and then I'm putting it in on the sides, and I'm going to do all of the ribbon that has the bigger hearts at one time, so then I can see where I want the other one with the smaller hearts. And I counted them out because I didn't have very many of this one, and they work out really well, putting one in the top in the middle, one at the top at the bottom, and then starting up each side, going a little bit away and leaving a gap, a little bit away and leaving a gap, and it worked out. It's not totally symmetrical, but I think it would look better if you kind of planned it out a little and didn't do them too random if you're only putting in two different kind of colors. I like that it all kind of flows together. And I did cut these a little long some kind of way, so I'm going to trim them down so they don't stick out so far past the other ribbons. I want it really nice and full. If you guys have been around on my channel for a while, you know I'm crazy extra. I always too much when it comes to all of my DIYs, and I absolutely love them. So now I'm going to take the little hearts and I'm going to do the same thing with those. Now, some of them are upside down, and I get that. If I would have thought it through that these hearts were going to be upside down on both the small ones, I may have just cut them and stuck in individual pieces, but it doesn't bother me. If that's going to bother you, I'd cut them and stick them in individual pieces. That way you could have all of the hearts facing up and none of them facing down. So I'm just laying these out to show that they're going to go in all the spaces, because you don't really need to see me glue them in again. So now that we're done with that, I'm going to show you this reform again. This was my thought process. I was going to put the ribbons on the reform and then put the heart on top of it. But since I put the ribbons on the back, you don't need the reform. But if you want to use it, because it will make a great hanger, you can still put it back there because you can't see it from the front. But instead, I'm just going to make a hanger and stick it right here in the middle to hang mine and use this for a future project. And I still have that reform and the piece that I cut off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my beaded reform, and I'm going to put it down, and it fits it perfectly. I mean, it's just off by a little, but with all the ribbons and the fact that I'm going to put a bow at the top, that's what that extra ribbon on the side is left for, it fits it perfectly. So to put this down, I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue. You could use wood glue. It's just going to take longer to dry, and since I'm making this for me, I'm going to use a little wood glue. So I'm putting big dots up by the top and one down by the middle, and then little dots around the edge. And I'm using a high heat glue gun, so it gives me a second for it to, dry or harden. And so you have a little wiggle room with it. Then once I get that on, I'm going to take and put my letters on. And as you can see, it says I and then heart you for I love you. Now this heart I already had in my stash, and I did glue 2 of them together too with some wood glue with the letters. I didn't show you guys that because I thought I was going to use the Dollar Tree ones, but I was like, why open that when I already have these? And this is about the same height as these letters, and the other ones were like a little fatter, and I like this better. So now I'm going to take my leftover ribbon. I have 2 of the solid red, 2 of the mesh like red, 1 of the mesh like, or the sheer, I guess it's sheer, not mesh, white, and then 2 of the little hearts, and then I only have a tiny piece of the big hearts with Dollar Tree thin ribbon. I'm going to pinch them in the middle and kind of spread them out in like a messy bow. You guys know I like to make my whimsical, chaotic mess of a bow. That will be way too big for this, so I'm just going to make a messy bow like everyone makes here on YouTube. And I'm going to take a zip tie here and tighten it together just by stacking them all up the way that I wanted them stacked and pulling it out to fluff it. I'm going to cut off the extra stem, and then I'm going to take that extra little piece, which is long enough to tie in the back, and I'm going to just tie a knot in the back of it. I'll put a little dot of hot glue on it once I get it on there tied nicely, and the front lays down and shows the actual front of the hearts. And then I'll put another dot of hot glue on to my board and put down my bow. And I absolutely love how this turned out. It's so Valentine's. It's bright red. I'm normally not the big bright red Valentine's kind of person, but I think this turned out really pretty for my first ribbon wreath. And then I just had this little red piece of ribbon left over that I'm going to glue down in the back from a Christmas ornament or something that I took it off. And you guys know I don't throw anything away. I save all my extra pieces, and I'm using it as a hanger. You can put a little piece of like a popsicle stick on the back to make sure that it doesn't come off too. And this is what it looks like. I'm in love with it, and I think it's great. My inspiration was definitely that wood grain heart, and I love what it looks like. Here are 2 heart beaded wreaths. The darker one came from Hobby Lobby last year on clearance. It's pretty big, but I do not like the color, so I painted it white. It took a long time. I used a brush. I'm in Michigan. We have snow. It is freezing. You cannot spray paint. And I also painted the small one white as well from Dollar Tree. I also have these lights that came from Amazon that I have in my stash. There's like 8 different settings. I'm going to just pop through a few of them. They strobe. Sorry. I hope you don't have any issues with that. I'm not going to be doing that at the end of the video when I show it light up. So trigger warning, if strobes bother you, don't worry at the end of the video. I also have these little picks that came from Joann's. They are 1 rose. I actually have 2 of those, and some peonies. And I have this ribbon here that came from Dollar Tree that I was going to use, but I really don't. I use a very small piece of it here at the beginning, and then I don't use any more of it. So the first thing we're going to do is, you've seen me do this before on just regular reforms, and you can shape the reforms any kind of way that you want as long as they have wire in them for the most part. Now this, like, it's going to stay in a heart shape basically unless you pull it up, but I wanted it to kind of mimic what that heart looked like a little bit more than being the fat wide heart that it came like. So I'm just bending it in. Now it's not going to stay perfectly like this, but I didn't want it as wide as it was. So, and don't worry, it looks a little crooked. It's going to change as we go along to do this. Next, I'm going to take a little bit of that yarn and I'm just going to pull out a little section, tie it to the end of my reform. And then I'm going to take out, and I'm sorry this takes me just a minute. I should have cut out a little bit more of this, but I'm just going to take out the part of these lights that have no light on them. So removing the extra paper from and just pulling that part out. I want that all the way out because I don't want to use any of that for this next portion. And I'm going to take the battery pack. It has a little loop in the end of it. I'm going to put this yarn through the loop, then take it and wrap it around that bead and tie it. I cut it off and then tie it. I cut it off long. I want it long, so make sure you cut yours off long because then I'm going to go around the wire and back around the bead on one way and then tie it, and then I'm going to go around the wire the other way and tie it. So I want it super secure, and this is a really strong ribbon, and I double knot it and then I cut off the excess. It's not going anywhere. I don't even have to put glue on that. So then after that, you see all of this wire to the lights. I make sure that I get all of that out that has no lights on it, and I'm going to just take and remove the cardboard altogether. My other one didn't have cardboard in it. This was kind of a pain. And I'm going to take and gather all of this back up like it was and put a zip tie on it. I don't want any of this to show. And so I'm going to zip tie it and cut off the little excess from the zip tie. I know this is a lot. I'm sorry. I know I talk a lot in my videos, but I want you guys to know all of the instructions. And so you don't have to try to figure out what did she do there. Well, I'm going to glue this down to the battery pack. The battery pack's going to sit under the beads, and I'm going to glue this down to the battery pack because I'm not going to glue the battery pack to the beads. So then once I get it all out, I am going to go around the bead that's right next to the battery pack with this. And then I'm going to put this back in, and I'm going to take this wire and go underneath the small reform and then around that bead. I'm going to count in how many beads are from the point of the small reform to where that bead is, and then I'm going to put it there, and then I'm going to skip one bead opening and go around the next bead opening twice, as you can see. So go under this reform, go to the second one, so it's every other bead opening, not two beads next to each other like this, but the one next to it. I hope this makes sense. And you're going to go around it twice. If you go around it once, it's going to move out of there. You need to go around it twice. So let me show you again. I'm going to go up, skip a bead, so it's every other, go between these two, go under this and pull it, and I try not to have too much off of the round of the lights, like not too much loose wire. And then I'm going to pull it, and I'm going to try to keep my center wreath, the small beaded wreath, in place, and then I'm going to go around it again. I just put my hand on it and hold it into place and go around it again. That secures it so it won't move. Now I'll go underneath the small one, skip a bead, and because you're doing every other bead, you're going to skip the one, and I just keep the battery pack under there because it leads that one up so I can get under it easy. And then I'm going to wrap around it like this, take this whole thing and go around it again. So you have a full loop around that bead. And then it'll look like a zigzag on the sides and your every other bead. See? Now we're going to skip one and go to the next one. There is the same number of beads on the large wreath as the small wreath, except for there's +1. That one that dips down on the large wreath in the center at the top, that's one extra bead than you have on the small one. So it will work out perfectly for you to do this the way that I did it if you want to make this. If you can find the wreath form, because it was from Hobby Lobby last year and not this year. So I did try to look to see if they had it, but I couldn't even find anything that said heartbeat at wreath. So I showed you again. I'm underneath this one. I'm holding it into place where it kind of needs to go. I'm going to go over the big one. And I'm trying to keep my coil, or I need to go around this one more time. I'm really sorry. So go around it fully, and I try to keep my coil not too far away. So now when we get to the bottom, we're going to do this a little bit different. It works out perfectly to go to the middle, go around the middle fully, keeping my beads where they need to go. It'll pull over more like I show you once we get to the other side, but you don't want it to get too tight to one side. So you want to try to keep it together. Go underneath, come up through the middle of this, and then back down in the same spot. Now you wouldn't normally do that. You'd skip to the next one, but we want it to be nice and secure. Then we're going to go under, and then come over and start our pattern again and skip 2. That keeps that middle down nice and secure. So I hope this makes sense. So you're going to have an extra set of wires down in the middle at the bottom, just to keep it into place, and it works out really well. This set of lights, which I will link in my description down below, that I got on Amazon, there's some similar. They're long enough to do that. There are 100 LED lights on this, and it's 33 feet long, I do believe. It came in a multi-pack. It was really a good deal. So now we are up to the top. I didn't want to force you to sit and watch me do the other side. Hopefully you understand it. If not, you can rewind it and watch it again. It's really not that hard. But when you get up to the top, like I said, this middle bead right here is going to be one extra. So instead of counting that in my pattern, I'm going to skip that one too. So instead of every other right here in the center, I'm going to skip that bead and then count the next one as my extra. I hope that makes sense. Because if I didn't, then my pattern would be off. And so then I get it all the way around to the end. And when I get to the end, I am going to wrap this, what is left, which isn't very long, and sorry, it got cut up there, all the way around the battery pack. Just all the way completely around the battery pack. And I'm going to do it in the middle bead where I end up, and then I'm going to go over and do it into the bead next to it and wrap it around, and then I'm going to go around and do the bead on the other side of it. So I'm wrapping all this extra lighting around the 3 beads that are by the battery pack. This is going to hold the battery pack on, and then I'm just going to tuck the tail in between them, and it won't come off. And just a heads up, make sure the button is on the bottom of the back so you can turn it on. So now I'm going to be taking these flowers. This was the peonies that I showed you earlier, but it looked too yellow for me, and I had these kind of open roses, and so I took the peonies off these stems and put the roses on, and I'm going to be using them to cover up the battery pack at the top. Now, before I do that, I noticed here that, you know, my heart is still skinny, but up at the top it's not very pointy, and I didn't like that, and you can see the little silver there. So I'm going through stashes of beads in my stuff, and I'm going to take one and cut it in half with my miter shears. I did put on safety glasses for this because I'd never done this before, and I didn't know how hard it was going to be to do it and where it would fly. But this was so easy. It cut through them really simply. I didn't have to do much pressure at all, and I used the smallest piece because I didn't get it quite in half, and I'm going to glue it in the middle there, and then I just paint it white. So now I am taking these picks and deciding where I want it, just enough to cover up the battery pack. But you guys know I'm super extra. And I had a bunch of these white ones, and so I put a ton on here, way more than it needed. And I ended up taking some off, and you'll see that here in just a second. I do take a piece of white ribbon and I tie it around in the back to the bead. And you can see I have the lights on. If the flickering bothers you like this, just wait a second, it's gonna stop. I'm just tying it on to make a hanger. And this is what it looks like. I'm in love with this. You can put a picture or something in that middle heart, but you can reach your hand right through there, and I'm gonna leave it just like that. So that's it for this video. Comment down below. Let me know which one of these DIYs do you like best. I love both of them, but I have to tell you, the last one is my ultimate favorite one. This one is traditional here. DIY Valentine's with all the red, all the hearts, all the pretty. I love how it turned out. I'm really happy that I stacked up the letters and stuff on it. And I'm going to be keeping this for myself as well. But the next one that I did, the one you just saw, and here it is again, is my favorite. I did put a ton of flowers on the top corner there. It seemed a little heavy to me, but this is with my house completely dark and this lit up on the inside of my front door, and it is spectacular. Here it is where I take a few flowers off the top so it didn't look as heavy. And you guys know I like to tip my heart sideways. You can tip yours either way. You can also do it straight up and down. It's your project. You can do it in any color. Paint your beads any color you want. And I think this is a great project for Valentine's Day. Both of them will make a very nice gift too, because I know I'm always struggling for something to gift at the and never am prepared for Valentine's Day. So that's it for these DIYs. I want to thank you guys so much for watching and liking my videos. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, because I have some more fun things coming your way. And I will catch all of you in my next video. Bye, loves.